Welcome in to Yahoo Sports Daily. Happy Thursday. The second round of the NBA draft is behind us. Much less pomp and circumstance than the first round, might I add. But that does not mean that the NBA rumors have stopped. In fact, the NBA rumors are at an all-time high. They're absolutely flowing. So that is where we start this morning. Coley Harvey in for Jason Fitz today. I am Caroline Fenton. Coley, appreciate you for being here. Always love to see your face on Yahoo Sports Daily in the mornings. But let's start in Los Angeles, where Austin Reaves got absolutely paid. Shams reporting yesterday that Reaves intends to sign a 4-year, $185 million maximum contract to return to the Lakers. Luka's Batman has his Robin, at least in theory. So that begs the question, which was the first thing that I thought of yesterday whenever I saw this news coming through my timeline, was what does that mean for LeBron James? So let's do a Lakers edition of what we like to call here on Yahoo Sports Daily Triple Threat, where we shoot, pass, or dribble on NBA takes. So if it's a shoot, that means we are totally buying into the take. If it's a pass, it's no thank you, don't agree with that. And if it's a dribble, we're still trying to figure it out. So Coley, shoot, pass, or dribble. Based off of the Brian Windhorst report that the Lakers would do a Jarrett Allen for LeBron James swap if LeBron was willing to sign in Cleveland. This contract signals the end of LeBron James in a Lakers uniform. You buying it?
Ooh, Caroline, I'm going to pass on this. I don't think that Austin Reeves' contract here alone signals the end of LeBron James in Los Angeles. I mean, I think that, hey, it's possible he could go back to Cleveland. He certainly would love to maybe tie a bow on his career and win there. But he's kind of been there and done that. He knows what Cleveland is. He's an LA guy now. I mean, this is LeBron City is Los Angeles right now. His son, of course, is playing for the Lakers. His son is still under contract this coming season and even the season after. For that reason, as long as LeBron decides he wants to continue to play, which right now all signs seem to point to the fact that he's going to come back for at least another year, if not another year beyond that. I think he stays in Los Angeles. This is a deal that with Austin Reeves that because of where he was with the cap figure coming into this new contract, that's basically where the cap hold still would stay for the Lakers. They've got a ton of cap space, and so they can still play around and sign some other players. They can re-sign LeBron James with the cap figure that they've got right now. And for that reason, I don't think that the Lakers would be really playing around with the possibility of allowing LeBron James to go away and to go back home to Cleveland. I think that they're going to hold on to him. I don't really think that that this situation with Reeves, that this new contract, that really affects the future of LeBron James in Los Angeles. Like I said, I feel like he is a Laker. He's going to finish his career as a Laker, especially because his son is still there. This is where they've ended up putting roots as a family. And he's at the age now at 41, going on 42 at the end of this year, where I don't think he's going to just want to up and leave one more time just to go back to a city where it's kind of uncertain whether he would be able to lead the Cavs to a championship. So no, I think that as long as he is remaining in the league and not retiring, this does not signal an end of LeBron James in a Lakers uniform.
I'm with you. I pass on this. And not because I wholeheartedly believe in my, 100% that LeBron James absolutely positively will be back with the Lakers. If I had to bet on where he would play next year, I would bet on Los Angeles. But it's not just because of this Windhorst report of a Jarrett Allen for LeBron James swap. Important to remember a couple of things. One, LeBron James is an unrestricted free agent. It's not like LeBron would just go to Cleveland if he didn't want to go to Cleveland. It's not like this would be a trade. It's not like it would be Jarrett Allen for LeBron James. LeBron James can go wherever he wants, wherever there is a contract on the table. The second important thing to remember that will come up throughout our entire Lakers discussion as they start to kind of build their roster for the 2026-27 season is Austin Reeves' cap hit will not hit the Lakers this offseason. He has a $20 million cap hold. So it's not like Austin Reeves' contract that he just signed is going to hit the books immediately. And that puts a little bit of pressure on the Lakers to find, some cheap supplementary pieces this offseason. No. Austin Reaves' cap situation is actually really advantageous for the Lakers as they build for next season. So it's not like that necessarily affects the money that the Lakers could put on the table for LeBron. They still have about $50 million in cap space, which in theory could fit in a LeBron James. But what this Austin Reaves contract does maybe signal to me, which maybe makes me feel less confident that LeBron could be a Laker next year, is I didn't think there was a world where the Lakers could just run it back. And of course, they're going to, move some pieces around here and there from some role players. I just didn't believe that the Lakers could sell themselves as legitimate contenders if you just bring back Luka and Austin Reaves and LeBron James. I mean, they're fresh off of a sweep in the postseason, right? And I know it was to the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder, but we're talking about the Los Angeles Lakers here, where the standard and the expectation is championships. So if you can step away from it and say, hey, we're good with getting swept by OKC, then what are we doing here? So if they brought Austin Reaves back, I don't know if they in good faith, Coley, can also bring back LeBron James and say, like, let's just run back everything that we had this past offseason. But go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say part of what we also have to remember from that sweep last year is this is a Lakers team that wasn't at full tilt going into the playoffs and even going into that series. You didn't have Luka Doncic for so much of the run down at the end of the year, and then also you didn't have Reaves for a lot of that. Even with Doncic out for a lot of the month of March, this is a Lakers team that still went 15-2 in that month as they were leading up to the postseason. So that was a little bit more of what this Lakers squad could look like when it was a little more healthy. Of course, it was near the end of that month is when Luka got hurt, and then Reaves got hurt right after that. And then the wheels kind of fell off, but they still played well against the Rockets there in that first round series. I think that says a little bit more about the Rockets than it did about the Lakers. But to me, that's a reason why you kind of can run it back, because you've got the pieces in place. You've got the level of comfort in place. You've got a system that clearly can work. Why not run it back again for another year? And I think that's where some of the other signings that may take place for the Lakers now, it's going to be internal. I just don't see free agents out there who would be added to the mix. This is just a really weak free agency class overall in the NBA. Yeah. Next year is a different story with Nikola Jokic, who is a possible free agent. That would be different if he was in the mix this year. But in terms of this year, I would see them re-signing guys like Jackson Hayes, Rui Hachimura, who played very well in that postseason, while the rest of the team might have struggled there in that last series. He played very well. Bring those guys back. You got the cap space to do it.
Speaking of cap space, ESPN cap expert Bobby Marks said that the Reaves deal, like we mentioned, has no impact on their cap situation this offseason, which includes $50 million of projected cap space. So, Coley, shoot, pass, dribble. The Lakers are just getting started finding their star to put next to Luka Doncic.
Well, I'm going to dribble when we put it that way, that they're looking for their star. I guess that kind of goes with what I was just saying. I just don't see a massive free agency star right now. I mean, Austin Reaves was about to be the darling of free agency if he hadn't been re-signed. And, that kind of says a lot about where this class is. No shade at all to Austin Reaves. He's still a very fine player. But compared to what we would normally see in other years, like, again, we may see with Nikola Jokic next year, that does say a lot about this year's free agency class. So I'm going to dribble just because there isn't that star per se. But I do want to see a shot taken here, because I do feel like some of those pieces that they do need to re-sign, like a Hachimura and maybe even a Jackson Hayes, just to add a little length and height into that front court. I think that you bring those guys back. Doncic will be healthy. You've got Reaves in the mix, and then LeBron James, and whoa, all of a sudden the Lakers look like a team that really can contend. They've got the cap space to do that. They also, if they were to go out and get a high name free agent, which again, I just don't foresee that at this point that there's really anybody out there, they would be having to possibly hit that first or second apron of the salary cap. And that's the question to them is, would they be comfortable going that high? I would think that, again, that to the point that you were just making about them being kind of in win now mode, they probably would be comfortable taking that risk, because it is kind of championship or bust in this moment when you've got Doncic ready, you've got Reaves there, and you've got a guy in LeBron James who obviously knows what to do about winning a championship, knows how to get done, and has done it in the past. But my take here: re-sign the guys that you've got. You've got the space to do that, but I don't think you really need to look elsewhere because there just really aren't very many names right now to bring into the mix.
Yeah, I will shoot on this that the Lakers are just getting started finding that third piece. And maybe that is LeBron James because like we mentioned, they have the cap space to do it. And that cap space is fleeting. Once Austin Reeves' cap hit hits, all of a sudden you have much less flexibility. So this feels like the window of opportunity for the Lakers to take that big swing. So I think that they should be doing their due diligence, whether it's a sign and trade situation, like we mentioned, LeBron James for Jared Allen. You know, you're getting a defensive player, a rated defensive player of the year. What do the Lakers need? Defense. So I can see that making sense. But I don't know exactly who that player might be, whether it is a trade situation, a sign LeBron and trade situation, whether that is a free agency situation. But I do have to believe with the Lakers cap flexibility, having the trade piece or at least the thing that you can sell of, hey, you can play next to Luka Doncic and you're going to play for the Lakers. Like that's an attractive thing for a lot of free agents. So it feels like the Lakers have a lot of chess pieces right now that they are just getting started. And if that does end up in just re-signing LeBron James for, let's say, $35 million a year, then so be it. But I do think the Lakers owe it to themselves and owe it to Luka Doncic to at least look elsewhere and to be a little bit more creative to see if there is a better opportunity out there than what you might get from LeBron James. But last one here. The Lakers traded up one spot to select Cam Carr out of Baylor in the first round of the NBA draft. Carr was originally projected to be taken in the teens. Shoot, pass, or dribble. The Lakers got the steal of the draft in Cam Carr from Baylor.
I'm going to dribble here because I don't think that he is the steal of the draft, but I do think that he's among the steals. I think Darius Acuff should have ended up in Brooklyn and not Sacramento. That's another story. Visar ending up in Atlanta in the second round. Henri Visar had no business being in the second round. He should have been taken in the first round. How he got so far down in the draft, I think, is also going to end up being a steal for the Hawks. Hometown team, of course, that's a good thing in my eyes. But in this case with Cam Carr, I mean, he's a shooter. He is a guy who's going to be able to slash and score for you inside. He's going to be able to hit that mid-range. He'll even be able to hit the long-range three for you if you need. That's a good thing for this Lakers squad going forward because whether he is part of the mix right now, like whether he's part of the mix this season, that's going to be remaining to be seen. But maybe he is that piece that down the line can develop into being the replacement, so to speak, for LeBron James. Now, let me make it clear. I'm not saying that he is LeBron James or that he will be LeBron James, but just that he can do some of those things on the offensive end that you're getting from LeBron as a Laker right now. The ability to score inside, the ability to hit that mid-range, and the ability to hit the deep three. That's going to be really clutch for this team as it tries to continue to build its identity around offense. You know, defense is an area where the Lakers certainly could use some work. They had it again in that Rockets series, but again, I think that says a lot more about the Rockets than it does the Lakers. But the offensive end is where it feels like the identity of the Lakers has really been raised here in the last couple of years. And a lot of that is because of a guy like LeBron James. So Carr to me feels like that next level, that next step for whenever the Lakers do depart with LeBron, whether it is with him retiring, whether something takes place with them in this offseason to send him away, or if he decides to go away, whatever the case may be. I think that Carr fits that bill. So in that respect, yes, he's a steal. I don't know if I'd say he's the steal of the draft.
He is one of the steals of the draft. And I'm with you. I love this fit where Cam Carr doesn't have to step in and be your offensive juggernaut right away, right? He can sit on the bench. He's good for 10 to 15 points off the bench whenever he wants to come in late game situations. But he's now afforded the time with the Lakers to be able to sit and develop and let the speed of the NBA game come to him. So I love this fit. He's one of the steals. I'll even argue that Cam Boozer at 3 to the Grizzlies was a steal. I don't know if it really fits the bill of a steal because a lot of people mock drafted him to go 3 to the Grizzlies. But I mean, we heard KOC, Tom Haberstroh, our very own at Yahoo Sports, saying that Cam Boozer was the best player in the draft. So for Memphis to get him at 3 feels like a steal. I think for the Kings to get Darius Acuff at 7, total incomplete steal. I love Darius Acuff. So I think the Kings being able to sit back at 7 and still get him, great call by them there. I think the Sixers getting LeBron Philon at 22. I saw him mocked as high as 10, and the Sixers are able to sit back and get LeBron Philon at 22. I thought was great. Add some guard depth for them. So a ton of kind of inexplicable falls that we saw, at least in the first round of the draft. And then, as you mentioned, Henry Fasara into the second round. But I would consider all of them steals. But Coley, one thing that I have to get off my chest with Cam Kerr that will bug me until the end of time, until Adam Silver or anyone in the NBA can fix this. The fact that Cam Kerr was walking to the stage as there were New York Knicks logos everywhere. He's putting a Knicks hat on his head, and he's literally saying as he's walking up to the stage, I think I just got traded. It's like, poor Cam Kerr. That's the best moment of his life, or one of the best moments of his life. Getting drafted. That's a moment that you dream of since you were a little kid, and here you are wearing a hat for a team that you probably will never play for. It is just dumb. Idiotic move by the NBA. Why not just give him the hat that you know he's going to wear? Dumb. Need to fix that in the NBA
This
draft.
has been a problem for years.
And how have we not? It's the easiest fix. It is so simple. It'll bug me until the end of time. But plenty of more NBA talk to come because we got an absolute bombshell late last night. Is Melo on the move?
You have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again, that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies, this national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in.
Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I'll take it as a miss because it didn't work. But I still think this guy has the potential to become a star in this league. I was super on the train of draft Jonathan Kuminga. And so I'd have to say that that's my miss, but not miss from the standpoint of Killian Hayes type of miss. Miss from the standpoint of ultimately it didn't work. And now he's trying to and will figure it out, I think, in Atlanta.
See how things go. And this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago. And the return off to the races, Aaron Jackson. Touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm gonna say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
Latest on LaMelo Ball from Mark Stein. LaMelo has been looking forward to next season with Hornets, but Charlotte will listen to offers anyway. Bucks have also registered interest in LaMelo, but Wolves' interest is, quote, undeniably serious, but Jaden McDaniels is off the table. That is the latest that we have heard. LaMelo Ball potentially on the moves. We've heard the Bucks and the Timberwolves both interested in Melo. Coley, what was your initial reaction when you heard these reports? And what landing spot in return makes the most sense in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I saw the report early this morning. I happened to pick up my phone as I was waking up, and I was like, "Wait, whoa! LaMelo Ball out of Charlotte? This is possibly happening." Very stunning. I'm really surprised by it because, by all accounts, it sounds as if LaMelo Ball has fit very well into Charlotte. He loves being there. He's had a really good rapport and respect with the front office. And that's a big deal. He's been improving in recent years. In fact, even this past year, he changed his turnover numbers. He completely flipped the script. It seemed as if he was really playing within himself. And he was such a key part of this fun postseason run that the Hornets just had this past season. So it has felt like he is a piece that they've wanted to build around and that they want to continue to use as one of their centerpieces as they keep moving forward and making even more of a postseason run in the next couple of years. But this also kind of feels to me like a moment where the Hornets are saying, "Hey, look, the ceiling is very high for LaMelo right now because he has improved, because he has done some of these things around his game. Other teams are taking notice, and we need to get better in some other areas. And, oh, by the way, it's probably time for us to build around a couple other pieces in this Hornets locker room, that being Brandon Miller, the shooter, and then also Con Knippel, the rookie, who just had an amazing Rookie of the Year campaign. So I think they're looking at Rookie of the Year type campaign. I think they're looking at that and they're saying, "Hey, look, let's try to build around this as our core. We can get some value off of LaMelo Ball at this point, and then go from there." And then maybe also you could argue that obviously we're not as deep into the weeds as Mark Stein or some of these NBA insiders, but perhaps this is also the Hornets trying to figure a way into the Jaylen Brown sweepstakes even. We've heard that it could take multiple teams to tango here for the Celtics to trade out Jaylen Brown. So maybe this is them kind of figuring their way into that weeds, and that makes some sense there. I don't know. Raptors and T-Wolves, those are the two teams that, as you mentioned, it sounds as if they're the most active right now. I would think that other teams would probably be active as well, just because of what LaMelo meant to the Hornets this past season as a scorer, as well as just as a distributor. He certainly has carried that team in these last couple of years, and particularly this last season. So that he's going to have a lot of suitors, but I'm not sure how he fits in Minnesota in my eyes. I know that certainly Minnesota needs that help, but with Anthony Edwards there, I just don't know if two alpha dogs that way exist, in that same locker room. We shall see if this plays out, and then if they get the chance to play with each other.
It would be fun. There would not be a dull moment on or off the court if Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball were playing together. I would sign up for that, no doubt. From the Charlotte perspective, it does feel a little bit strange with Charlotte coming off of a season where they were in the play-in tournament. This was probably the most exciting and successful Hornet season in quite some time. And it felt like LaMelo kind of broke through to a certain extent. That where there was a certain level of maturity, a certain level of availability. I mean, he played, 75 games this past year? So he was more available than he had been in a long time. He was a team leader, and obviously was a great ball mover, is a great shooter. I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, Brandon Miller had a huge season this past year. Con Knippel was Rookie of the Year runner-up. It's hard to think that your point guard in LaMelo Ball, who is an elite ball mover and distributor, didn't at least play a big part in that. So it might feel a little bit strange from the Charlotte perspective, just coming off of the success of the year that they had, coming off the success of the year that Melo had. But I think it can make sense maybe just for a couple of reasons. One, the maturity of LaMelo Ball has been in question, at least since he's been in Charlotte. This past year he had the car accident where he was just driving too fast. Maybe things are worse than we might know on the outside, on the inside of the Charlotte Hornets organization. Maybe they've just gotten overly frustrated with Melo. Now, that is simply just speculation of me rationalizing why this might be something the Hornets could be interested in. I'm not saying that is what's happening. The second thing could be maybe they're just weary of the injuries. Maybe coming off of a big year where he was largely available, but knowing that he does have the history with the ankle and the foot injury. And I'm just hearing breaking news. news. A trade
Uh-oh.
just happened. A trade
Oh,
coming
well.
down the pipe. We're getting some information from our producers. Oh, wow. Just happened right here.
Well,
Breaking
hey,
news
there you
from
go.
Shams. The Charlotte Hornets are trading star guard LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps in 28,
Wow.
29, and 30, and 3 second-round picks in 29, 32, and 33. This just in, brand new breaking news. This is wild to me. So initially, the Timberwolves came out and said Jalen McDaniels was off limits, Anthony Edwards was off limits, Rudy Gobert was off limits, and Naz Reid was off limits. I think that was also just kind of a posturing and negotiating tool to say, hey, no, not these guys. So my initial thought, Coley, was, okay, well then what are you giving up? You're not getting LaMelo Ball coming off of a career year for free.
For nothing.
So I think
right.
the Hornets getting Naz Reid, getting they needed some big post presence, a big defensive player. Naz Reid definitely fits that bill. Your initial reaction to Melo to Minnesota in exchange for Naz Reid?
I am stunned. Not stunned because it did feel as we started hearing more and more about this early this morning, it did seem like, okay, this is probably about to go down. It also seemed clear that it was going to happen fairly soon, that the talks had apparently gotten that advanced. And the Timberwolves were the team that we had been hearing more than any other. You know, you heard the Raptors also connected, and even they had what sounded like a really good trade package rumored. But it felt like it was probably going to be the Timberwolves. Again, I personally I'm curious to see how this fit works when it comes to, okay, we're going to have a game in the middle of the season. Last shot comes down to who? Is it going to be Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball? And either one of them can make the shot, but I just don't want the one who doesn't take that shot to feel any level of resentment. And all of a sudden we have a new Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum type situation going on in Minnesota. That's my only fear with this as a fit. Otherwise, when you look at it on paper, absolute fit. You know, this is a guard who certainly will give Minnesota a little bit of an added presence moving the ball that it hasn't really had. This will maybe force Anthony Edwards to pass out sometimes instead of dribbling out and taking the shot. Although I think that is most of his game, and that's part of what makes his game so successful. So again, it's just going to be a really unique fit for me from a logistics standpoint. But when you look at what it is that Minnesota gave up, I mean, that's what it was going to take. It was going to take a whole lot of first-round picks because LaMelo had such a great year last year and because he has really blossomed into arguably one of the best guards in the league. So it was going to take a trade package like this. And I think this is also a sign that the Hornets are really gearing up for the future. I mentioned that they're probably going to try to build now around Brandon Miller and Con Knippel, but they just had a first-round pick, Christian Anderson, who actually went to my high school. Of course, not at the same time, but we never have players drafted the first round of the NBA draft. So shout out to Christian. That's really awesome. And he's a shooter. He's a scorer, went to Texas Tech. Will add to that mix as a point guard as well, can distribute. So I think this is also a sign that the Hornets feel really good about the draft pick that they just got. And I think it's a sign that they're looking at the future in other ways that they can build beyond just this coming season, but the next year and the year after through the draft. So I think this bodes so much better for the Hornets' future in my eyes than it does for the T-Wolves' immediate future.
I kind of love this. I hate that the Hornets are losing Melo after what a successful year that was. But to your point, they're getting an absolute haul of picks in return for this. When you have a 23-year-old Brandon Miller, a 24-year-old Moussa Diabate, and Con Knippel coming off of a Rookie of the Year runner-up campaign, and Con Knippel can't even drink yet. So the Charlotte Hornets know that they have time. They have plenty of time to build around their young core. They don't necessarily have to capitalize on going all in on it right away. So may as well get some picks back in return and sell high coming off of a career year for LaMelo Ball. Now, for the Timberwolves, this does make sense. They do not have a certified point guard. I mean, Ayo Dosunmu is not a a total and complete point guard. Anthony Edwards kind of played the point guard position this past season, but he's not necessarily an elite ball mover. I'm pretty sure this past season, without having his stats up in front of me, a career low in assists this past year. So when Anthony Edwards had the ball, he kept the ball. So if what they're now getting in LaMelo Ball is not just a great three-point shooter, it was just sub 40% from beyond the three-point line this past season, but they're also getting an elite ball mover that can create shots and create opportunities for Anthony Edwards. That's what the Minnesota Timberwolves need. Is this the piece that gets the Timberwolves past the San Antonio Spurs? Is this the piece that gets them past OKC? Now, that's what I'm not so sure about, because important to point out, LaMelo Ball has never played an NBA playoff game in his career. Play-in game, yes, but he doesn't have postseason experience. And we saw some crumbling down the stretch from that that San Antonio Spurs team this past year because they didn't have that postseason experience. So could it pay off in the long run? I do see that working. I do see the fit. I do see this being advantageous for Anthony Edwards. That should be the most important thing for Minnesota right now. But let's point out the lack of experience here. We will get back into some of our thoughts. Again, this just in breaking news, LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for Naz Reid and an entire haul of first and second round picks for the Charlotte Hornets. They continue to build their young core for the future. We'll get back into this, but coming up next, we'll transition into a little bit of college football. What's next for Brennan Sorsby? Because we know it is not in the NFL. It is not in college football. We'll also get into all things CFB with our friend Lucy Rohden coming up next.
There was a big bright light shining on the hall, and I saw these two figures, and they were coming. I couldn't see who they were. It was just like dark, shadowy figures. And then we walked past them. I was just talking to Jeff, and they were talking about before we started signing about how it goes. And then grabbed me from behind. He's like, "Hey," he says, "you're not even gonna say hello to me? You're doing that?" And it was Taker. I said, "I had no idea it was you, but that's so cool. It's so good to see you, man." I gave him a hug, and I said, "Man, I gotta tell you," I said, "I'm super excited for you, man. Are you excited for Dave Meltzer to give you the Booker of the Year award?" And he said, "Shut up," you know.
Myles Garrett traded to the Rams. They're trying to live in two worlds where they've got an eye on the future with the quarterback they took this year, but also clearly, maybe more than any other team we've seen, trying to push here for a Super Bowl, which God, the burden of expectations is going to be tough on that team this year. Like it is, sometimes I kind of roll my eyes at the Super Bowl or bust idea, but this really is like, that's it. Like Super Bowl or bust. Everything else it would be a failure of a season.
Got to get a touchdown on this possession. Stepping up Garrett. Garrett surveying. He wants it all. End zone Flavors is there, but it's pulled away by Cook. Cook pulled it out of the air and out of the hands of Flavors for a Northern Arizona touchdown.
That just happened. In my mind, I'm thinking INT, ball game's over. Marlon Cook says, "Give me this. I need it."
I grew up in Colombia, so soccer was our life. We grew up watching it, during the weekends. We all would go to the stadium, whatever. When I moved to the United States, I kind of lost that, passion for it. But I wait for the World Cup, and then I'm back. You remember what happened in '94?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I don't know if you were going to bring it up, but I remember.
Yeah, the U.S.
No,
obviously
I'm not going to bring it up. I'm just saying.
No, nobody brought it up. Nobody brought it up.
We're not even talking.
Norway, you are very college football to me. And if you know, you know. That from our friend Lucy Rohden. You can find her on YouTube and all social medias at CFB Lucy, who just launched her very own business venture. So congratulations to you, Lucy. Very, very excited for the first season officially of CFB Lucy. And you have been all over the World Cup over the last couple of weeks. The World Cup and college football, it feels like they are two opposite ends of the very same spectrum. How have you seen the parallels of the World Cup and the college football worlds?
As a lifelong college football fan, I feel like, and I live in, New York City, a non-college football town, I feel like I'm constantly preaching to people, hey, that college football is the best atmosphere in American sports. It's unreal. And the only pushback I ever get is like, the one thing that compares is soccer and European soccer. And so this was my first time going to a really, really big soccer match. And the Norwegians, those are awesome people. I love them. They're super drunk. They're a bit odd in the most fabulous of ways. And so the parallels have really just been the tradition, the pageantry, the things that make college football so unique from any other sport, that make each school unique from one another. You see that in the World Cup, where Norway's rowing the boat was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It was unbelievably organized. They just have one guy with a drum who will drum and to row. And it was half the stadium doing it. It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I really understood why I would always get those comparisons between college football and soccer.
Yeah, to me, it's like the tradition of college football where we just know certain things that happen. Chief Osceola is going to ride out and plant the spear at Florida State, right? The Ramblin' Wreck's going to lead Georgia Tech onto the field, and the fans respond to those moments. That's exactly what the Vikings, the Norway fans did. They just knew how to respond to that moment. Lucy, what can college football fans learn from World Cup fans?
Honestly, the organization, where I was watching this thinking, one, this is so cool. Two, the only school I think could pull this off right now is Texas A&M, because they have so many rules and so many things that they need to remember, that I was like, wow, if some of these schools, just had their version of a drum guy, which maybe it's the cheerleaders, but if they had their version of someone to really lead the chants and be more prepped ahead of time, you could have just some of the cooler moments you'll ever see in sports. But there's just something about the Norwegians, man. They all had their Vikings hat on. They were insane. I saw them. They were doing the row the boat on the subway, which was disgusting. Truly nasty. Get up right
off
now.
That floor.
It's the most unholy things in the world have happened on the floor. Like Norway, hantavirus is back because they got it from the subway floor and they're bringing it home with them. Absolutely disgusting. So I would say everything but that college football could learn from.
Yeah, Norway fans maybe need to just bathe in Purell, or whatever you need to do to kill every single ounce of bacteria. But I felt the same way. I went to one game at Kyle Field. It was such an incredible experience. If you're a college football fan and haven't been, you have to go. I'm looking around how did you guys learn this choreography? I felt the same way about Norway fans. I'm like, how did you guys all coordinate this as a country?
So they have to do it at their freshman orientation. I just started asking students. I was like, tell me what's up. How are you knowing all this? So your freshman orientation, they said, and it's all hand signals. And so you have to follow the hand signals as you go. And there are certain things you cannot do based off your class. So you can't thumbs up whoop until I think you're a junior. So there are even parts of it that you have to remember, oh, wait, I'm not allowed to do that. I asked students, I said, what is your favorite tradition? And this one, I was like, okay, Texas A&M, I love you. I want to respect you, but this is not a serious university if you're doing this. They have a tradition that if Rev, their mascot, comes into your classroom and barks, class is canceled. And I said, how often does that happen? He goes, way more than you think.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean? Huh. What do you mean? They have the most made-up traditions ever there. I love them so much, but it is legitimately, you have to take a class to learn them all.
I respect it. Just because I don't understand it does not mean that I don't respect it. Lucy, I'm going to appoint you the official college football ambassador for soccer fans. So congratulations. It's a title that is, very highly revered. I want you to put together, and feel free to go across the country. We're going Kirk Herbstreit style. Go across the country and make your perfect ideal college football day for soccer fans who may have never experienced it.
So you will start tailgating at Ole Miss. That is where your tailgate will kick off. The Grove is one of one. It is the coolest tailgate in the world. I don't think they'll get the true college football experience because they'll assume private chefs and bartenders are at tailgates, but nonetheless, you'll get the Ole Miss vibe of it. Then you're going to go to LSU for the actual game day experience. It's I know, Caroline, you ride for LSU. They are one of one. It's the mecca of college football to me. I think everyone should go to an LSU game in their life. You could also tailgate there as well and have a wonderful time. To experience the tradition, I'm sending you to Texas A&M. You're going to have you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be deeply overwhelmed. You're going to think, is this really what Americans are up to all the time? And we'll say, not really. It's just these guys. But nonetheless, you'll really, really appreciate it. Food, I'm going to send you to UT Austin, get some good food in Austin. Drinking, I'm going to send you to the Midwest. You're going to go to a game at the University of Iowa, my alma mater, have fun at those tailgates. You're going to hit the post-game bars at UW-Madison, and you're going to love it. You're going to have the best time of your life. And I think that would be my perfect college football itinerary.
Oh, chills.
Wow, that's a really good one. There's so many, like, I was waiting for you to say Madison in some form or fashion, because Madison's like, you know, it's an elite
phenomenal college town. It's the most amazing college football town in the world. I will actually say it's not my favorite in-game atmosphere. The students don't get there till really late. So like, especially now that they're bad, they'll get there end of the first quarter, early second, and the second jump around is done, they're out.
They're out. Yeah, I could agree with that. Lucy, are you ready to never talk about Brendan Sorsby again?
I was never meant to live a life where I knew what temporary injunction meant. That was not in the plans for me. That is not what my maker wanted. And now I have to know that for the rest of my life. And I am just so done. And Brendan Sorsby, I understand you're going to have to fight for yourself to play. Buddy, I feel like his agents and his lawyers have put him in a position that I'm like, if he had just kind of like just bid it and just taken it, there's a world the NFL might still hold this supplemental draft. I'm not saying that would 100% happen, because we obviously know the NFL takes gambling violations more seriously than anything else. But you cannot sue your way into everything you want. Like, it just doesn't. You can't do that. And now your lawyer's out here saying, oh, we're going to sue the NFL for violating the CBA, and we're going to go to the NFLPA. You're not a player yet. I don't even know how that works. You're not a part of this organization. And so I feel bad for him, because I think he's getting a lot of bad advice. But good Lord, just take a beat. Go on a trip. I know you still got paid from Texas Tech. You got $5 million to get you through the year. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Temporary injunction and antitrust laws are two things that I know way more about than I should. Give me an honorary law degree. It is not for us. Me. If I wanted to be a lawyer, I would be one, but I want to talk about football, so I'm here. With all of this, the Brendan Sorsby situation, the 20-minute long video of, like all of the leadership at Texas Tech, all of Cody Campbell's Twitter antics, has all of this made Texas Tech the 2026 college football villain?
I would say the college football villain for the foreseeable future. And I actually think, in a weird way, this is very good for college football, because we always say, well, college football doesn't have a leader. College football doesn't have somebody that's kind of guiding the way. Cody Campbell was actively putting his name in the running for that by the things he was doing. He's going in front of Congress and trying to get bills passed that are going to protect college football and save college sports. It's not necessarily exactly how that would have played out, but he had put his hand so deep in the college football cookie jar with all of this, and people are now starting to realize, hey, is Cody Campbell doing all of this for the benefit of college football or for the benefit of Texas Tech? Because it's very clear by how his behavior went that he doesn't actually care about the integrity of college football. He cares about Tech winning. And so I think it's going to work out for college football in the long run, because it's going to be a little bit less Cody Campbell. People are going to be less willing to trust him. But yeah, man, they really... You've alienated your entire conference. Your conference tried to take legal action against you. You have alienated anyone who would schedule in the future. Michigan's canceling volleyball games. Georgia's saying they'll never play you again. Nebraska's saying they'll never play you again. They have done so much damage that I don't think is just a quick fix by Brendan Sorsby not playing, because Cody Campbell was clear they still wanted him to play. And the only reason right now that he's not still on the Texas Tech roster is because the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, came out and said something he shouldn't. Which Cody Campbell donated to him, which makes it a little bit funny.
Cody Campbell has donated to everyone. Where do I put my name into the ring? Like, where do I send him my Venmo? Because Cody Campbell is just throwing dollars around left and right.
My guy is, I'm so tired of him. I'm so tired of him. And he is this, this professional that is going to save the sport, but he's out here being like, Georgia players are drunk and driving all the time. You're like, can't say stuff like that. You're not trying to save the sport. You're not trying to save the sport.
That drove
and they're not
me
the same
crazy.
thing. Them driving fast is not the same thing.
When Joey Maguire said, well, it's not like he murdered someone, and it's like, no, but like it also doesn't have to be murder for it to be against the rules. Yeah, that's my hot take of the day.
My like rule of thumb is if you're comparing what you did to murder, you're not in a good spot. Like automatically, that's a bad place to be.
It means you knew you did something wrong.
It's just crazy. If that is your argument, like you could basically do anything. Didn't kill him though. I shot him, but I did not kill him. And it's like, oh no, that's still bad what you did. And so they've just kind of exposed themselves for what we all knew what Texas Tech was, which they are not a power player. They have taken this NIL era and paid their way into presenting as a power player, but it's one of those things where like you got to act like you've been here before, because if this happened at Alabama, that there would never have been a shot. Brendan Sorsby would not have played. And so it's one of those things where you tried to tell us you're one of the top dogs, and then you came and you tried to take the whole sport down with you, and you lost the respect of this entire athletics industry.
Yeah. No doubt. Texas Tech wanted to be one of the big dogs so badly that they damaged their reputation in the process. I don't think this is going anywhere. And now they're in a position where, like, I don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback for Texas Tech, but they went from a year where they were in the college football playoff this past year, and now who knows what's going to happen for the Red Raiders this season. But of course, whenever it does, we'll have our friend Lucy Rohden back here on the show. Lucy, thank you so much for your time. You were the absolute best. We hope to catch up with you soon.
You guys are awesome. Go Norway. Love them.
Go Norway.
I think they say like Nornay or something, or Norday. Norday, I think it is.
Well,
I was like, I didn't know you were saying it like
official
that.
fan of their team. Yeah, I'll have to look it up, and I will be a Norway fan in no time. But appreciate you, Lucy.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Have a good one. Our friend Lucy Rohden here, but these two friends could potentially be on the move. Is Jaylen Brown headed to Cleveland? Coming up next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Possibly for one of those RPO type plays where you put it in Tomas's gut, but you see the sticky coverage on the outside, trying not to allow for easy completions.
From the 16. They send the blitz. He lofts it. Corner of the end zone. What a catch against the wall. Quentin Randolph.
Problem was, this is good coverage. You just got to continue to run. Right there, you see Page kind of give up on it.
Mike Leach revolutionizes offense in the SEC with the air raid. Bob Stoops gets the Oklahoma job. He calls the guy whose offense drove him the craziest, who makes Mike Leach's offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. That works really well. Texas Tech hires Mike Leach. That changed high school football in the state of Texas. Meanwhile, you had players from Texas Tech going into the NFL saying, hey, here's what we did. He changed football at every level.
1:18 to play. Third quarter. Pumps once. Delora rolls. Delora calling out for his receivers. Back across the field, wide open. McKee inside the 10. Seneca McKee angles for the end zone. Touchdown, Nighthawks.
But he keeps the play alive and just finds the backside. McKee with a great finish. Phenomenal job right there by Delora.
I think Darius Acuff is by far the best point guard in this draft. I don't think it's a close second. But I think Acuff is different. Acuff can get a bucket. Acuff can pass the ball. And he has this confidence. He has this confidence it's not arrogant. It's not cocky. It's a surety in himself that you need to be successful at this level.
The Celtics are reportedly interested in moving Jaylen Brown for Evan Mobley. That there from Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix. Coley, a lot of our bosses here at Yahoo are die-hard Celtics fans. So I want you to transport yourself into the mind of a Boston Celtics fan. Are you here for this? Jaylen Brown or Evan Mobley in exchange for Jaylen Brown?
If I am transporting myself into the mind of a Celtics fan, I don't think that I can be for this trade. And I think some of this has to be said that there are certain parts of the Celtics fan base that are probably like, just get him out of here. Anything that will move the Celtics on from this never-ending saga of, are they keeping Jaylen Brown? Are they trading Jaylen Brown? There's a segment of that population that is certainly going to be glad about this if this trade were to happen. But for me, no, if I'm in the mind of a Celtics fan, I'm kind of perplexed because Evan Mobley, while he is an incredible defensive player, he's got the height, the size that the Celtics are looking for down low in the paint. I just don't know if this is a one-for-one trade where you're losing out on a potential really game-changing player in Jaylen Brown, who we do have to remind people that Brown was part of that Brown-Tatum matchup that did actually finally get the Celtics banner 18 and finally brought that back to Boston. And there are a lot of Celtics fans who remember that and respect that and do value that part of what Jaylen Brown has meant to the culture. I just don't know if you trade them up one for one. I don't know if Mobley's going to give you basically everything that you got out of Brown. I mean, he's going to give you that defense. He's going to give you that presence. He's going to give you that size down low. But I don't know if he's going to give you the championship drive, the understanding of what it takes to get to a championship, the ability to take a team over. I mean, we saw what happened last year for Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum's hurt. He's out for so much of the year. Brown just takes over. He finally feels like he's in ownership of this team. And it's the level of respect that he's been asking for ever since he came to Boston. A level of respect that in many ways has kind of been denied to him, both by the outside public, but then also internally by some of those in the front office and various coaching staffs that have taken hold. So I think that this is a player that certainly showed what he can do when the reins are fully in his control this past season. And I think if I'm a Celtics fan, I want more of that. I want to keep this guy in the fold as much as possible. But I also realize that this has been a never-ending saga. It seems like every year or every couple of years, there's stories about Jaylen Brown wants out, or there's stories about the Celtics are shopping Jaylen Brown, or there's stories about there's drama and turmoil, inner conflict right there. I want to be done with that if I'm a Celtics fan, but I don't know if this one-for-one trade is going to be what really puts me at ease. If I'm a Boston fan.
We have Boston fan bosses, but we have a Cavs fan producer. Our producer, Mike Goldfarb, is from Cleveland and is a diehard Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I know that our producer loves this, would love this trade, would eat this up, would do it in a heartbeat. So that means that Celtics fans would hate this. If one side loves it, then it means that somebody is getting the short end of the stick. And frankly, I agree with both. I agree with our producer, Mike Goldfarb, for loving this because you get Jaylen Brown. Are you kidding me? That feels like a trio between James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, and Jaylen Brown that can contend in the East. All of a sudden, the Cavs get much more interesting. But in return, you're getting Evan Mobley. Look, I know he was the reigning defensive player of the year coming into this season. I know he's an all-star, but we're talking about Jaylen Brown, who's a former Finals MVP. Talk about Jaylen Brown, who was the biggest reason why the Boston Celtics were the 2 seed in the East this year. I can't say that about Evan Mobley. Like, Donovan Mitchell is the engine that runs that team. Maybe we previously would have said that about Jason Tatum in Boston, but we got an opportunity to see Jaylen Brown be Batman, and he was Batman, and he did deliver. So I'm with you. It doesn't feel like a one-for-one trade. It doesn't feel like a fair Boston. But if you're Boston, you're looking around like we missed out on the Giannis sweepstakes. Now what? We either have to repair our relationship with Jaylen Brown, making the assumption that it is a reparable relationship, or we have to get what we can in return for him. And if you're the Celtics, and that's the best offer out there, if you do believe you have to move on from Jaylen Brown no matter what, and the best offer that you can get is a straight-up one-for-one trade for Evan Mobley, then shame on the Boston Celtics for putting themselves in that position.
Yeah, and I think that if you're a Celtics fan, you would want to say shame on the Celtics for doing that, because especially after all these years, there was a conversation about trading Jaylen Brown for James Harden at one point in time. We're talking about players who, at least back then, were more on the same level footing. It made sense to say a 1-for-1 trade that way. But no, I mean, this is apples to apples. Now, this is a great situation for Cavs fans if this trade were to go down, because now, yeah, you're getting this generational type talent in so many ways in Jaylen Brown, a guy who's not into he is, I guess you could argue, in the prime of his career, but he's got so many more years of his prime left to go. I mean, I can't believe that he's not even 30 years old yet. He'll turn 30 in October. So the fact that he has been a finals MVP, has been in multiple finals, has won a finals, has taken over a team, knows how to be an all-star, has all of these credentials, has shown that he has actually grown and matured both on and off the court in so many valuable and massive ways throughout his career. It goes to show that he is the type of veteran who can bring success to a team. So again, I don't understand why Boston would be so willing to part ways with that. But if you are Cleveland, you are so excited to be bringing that in, especially with a guy like James Harden, who has, of course, been in the postseason, but doesn't have the same hardware that Jaylen Brown would be bringing in. Now you've got a player in that locker room who commands a certain level of respect, who, maybe from the outside looking in, people don't really recognize this about Jaylen Brown, but he has a little bit of a Kobe-esque mentality. He's not Kobe. I'm not going to by any means compare him to the Mamba, but he has a little bit of that killer instinct in terms of knowing what it takes to be a champion, what it takes to win, what it takes to grind, and what it takes to get that out of the people around him. And, and I think that that's one of those intangibles that hasn't really gotten the same level of outward respect in Boston. People haven't really showcased that part of what Jaylen Brown has meant to the Celtics as a team. And, you move him to Cleveland now, I think that he would be able to help get that out of that Cavs roster, particularly one that's already dominated by his good friend Donovan Mitchell.
So I think clear concerns there for Boston fans. But if we want to look at the Cavs side of things, then the Cavs would be giving up an Evan Mobley at 25 years old, who has just entered, if not hasn't even entered his prime yet, in exchange for Jaylen Brown, who's 29 years old going into his 30-year-old season. There's clearly, that's a 5-year age gap, which I think is significant. If you're a Cavs fan, would you be cautious of that?
No, I think if you're a Cavs fan, you welcome it, because you're in this mode now where you want to win and you want to have a winner on your side. And if you've got a guy who's got a proven track record of doing that and has a long runway to go, you welcome that. It's funny as we're having this conversation. Yeah, 5 years is a big gap, definitely in terms of maturity as a player. That's a big gap between 25 and 30 in the NBA. But as a 30-year-old who has had all this track record to go already in his career, 30 is still very young. Jaylen Brown could easily play until he's 38, 39 years old. So you're talking almost a decade more of the production that we've seen to this point. I mean, if LeBron James is putting up the numbers that he's putting up at 41, going on 42 years old, I think that Jaylen Brown could do, not LeBron numbers, but he could do something similar to what we've seen so far for, more than 5-6 years down the line. And if that's the case, if you're a Cavs fan, you are so excited to possibly bring that to your roster, even if that means you're losing out on a guy who could have a longer, 10, 12 year window in terms of Mobley. But again, I just think that there are so many other intangibles that Jaylen Brown at this level of his career, at this stage of his career, that he can bring to a team like Cleveland that is looking to try to capitalize on its Eastern Conference Finals appearance this past season, than it would be getting from a younger player who doesn't quite have that same level of experience to get the team over the hump. Jaylen Brown knows what it takes to get a team over the hump, and that's why he would be welcomed in Cleveland. But it's also a reason why, I just don't understand why Boston is so quick to try to ship him off.
In terms of the age, look, the Cavs this past off season doubled down on committing to James Harden, and he's 36, turning 37 in 2 months. So, like, if this was, let's just say we just talked about the breaking trade that just went down less than an hour ago, LaMelo Ball in exchange for Naz Reid to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Hornets are in a much different kind of projection phase as maybe the Cavs, because their oldest player is what, 24, or at least their oldest core player is Musa Diabate at 24 years old. The Cavs, you have a 37-year-old James Harden, or at least who will be 37 going into next year. Donovan Mitchell will be 30 going into next year. So you're bringing in a 30-year-old Jaylen, 29, 30-year-old Jaylen Brown, who will be on the same timeline in theory as Donovan Mitchell. So I think right now the Cavs aren't overly concerned about getting younger or staying young. The Cavs right now are committed to capitalizing on the window that they feel like they're in right now. Who helps you do that? Jaylen Brown, who's won an NBA Finals, who is a Finals MVP, who has that kind of experience, who can upgrade your roster. So, the age part of things doesn't necessarily, overly concern me. But if this trade went down right now, as currently constructed, Jaylen Brown for Evan Mobley, straight up, I would say the Cleveland Cavaliers have won that trade, and the Boston Celtics have some massive question marks coming up as we go into the 2026-27 season. But coming up next, got to transition a little bit into some baseball, because Coley, your Atlanta Braves might be feeling just a little bit nervous. Maybe, perhaps, we'll see. We'll break it all down. What the Phillies mean for the NL East race.
You have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again, that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies, this national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in.
Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I'll take it as a miss because it didn't work. But I still think this guy has the potential to become a star in this league. I was super on the train of draft Jonathan Kuminga. And so I'd have to say that that's my miss, but not miss from the standpoint of Killian Hayes type of miss. Miss from the standpoint of ultimately it didn't work. And now he's trying to and will figure it out, I think, in Atlanta.
See how things go. And this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago. And the return up to the races, Aaron Jackson. Touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs, and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm going to say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
Suddenly, the Phillies winning the National League East doesn't appear like such an impossible mission. And if you would have read that tweet to me 2 months ago, I would have thought that you were on that good. But fast forward to June 25th, and all of a sudden, it doesn't seem that crazy. But Coley, you are the resident Braves fan in the building. I will give you the floor. All of a sudden, Phillies fans are starting to believe. That's a very scary fan base when they're feeling confident. It's a very scary fan base, just period. As a Braves fan, what is your level of concern for the Phillies eclipsing the Braves eventually in the NL East?
Well, I'll say I'm not concerned about the fan base. That is a very scary fan base, yes. But I'm more concerned about the team itself, because the Phillies do look really good right now, specifically their big power bats. Kyle Schwarber has looked great all year. He's been leading the league in home runs, of course, throughout the season. Bryce Harper is really coming into his own. Just had a triple, about 3 or 4 days ago? Or excuse me, just had a cycle just about 3 or 4 days ago. That's a really good team. You're looking at the standings right there, 4.5 games out of the first place Braves in the NL East. And the Phillies play tonight. They play the Nationals tonight, so you could almost chalk that up as a W for them. The Braves are off tonight as they're playing in San Francisco tomorrow. So it is conceivable by the end of today that the Phillies are down just 4 games to the Braves in the NL East. And that is a scary proposition, but it's more scary in this moment for the Braves because of what they don't have. The Braves right now are going through a serious wave and onslaught of injuries. I mean, you've had their pitching staff basically decimated all throughout the year. Spencer Strider is out for a good long time right now. And now Ronald Acuna is out with a hamstring issue, and he's had these leg injuries for the last couple of years. Of course, he's had hamstring issues. He's had ACL issues on both knees. So you're really concerned as a Braves fan what that portends for not just for his longer term future, but especially for what it means right now for the Braves. They just haven't looked the same since they've been without all these pieces, without the arms and without a couple of their bats now. They haven't looked the same in the last week or two. This is a Braves team that's actually, they just got swept by the Padres. They've lost 4 in a row. It looks really dark, but the one positive, the one saving grace for Atlanta right now is the fact that they're getting ready to face, some of the doormats, so to speak, of the National League. You've got the Giants on deck for them this weekend. And then aside from 2 series against a Cardinals team that has been pretty mediocre, has been pretty solid at times this year, you got the Pirates and you got the Mets as well before they go to the All-Star break. So the Braves have chances right now to not just hold on to this lead, but to still possibly extend it. But the Phillies have been looking really, really dangerous. And I just know that the way it's shaking out right now, we're probably going to be in for a really, really, really competitive NL East pennant chase by the time we get to August and September.
Which I think is great for the division. It's great for the NL because the NL's been so fun. The AL, not so much, but the NL has been deep and competitive. Now, if you're a Braves fan, I'm not going to say that you're pushing the panic button by any means. There's still a comfortable lead in that division. And there's still so much time left in the season, which could either be a great thing or maybe a not so great thing, depending on kind of how you're looking at it. But I think right now, if you're a Braves fan, obviously you're paying attention. You mentioned the injuries that don't make you feel great about at least the short-term projection of the Braves, the fact that the Phillies have caught so much heat. So if you're a Braves fan, sure, you're paying attention to it, but I don't think that you're necessarily pushing the panic button, waving your hands around and freaking out. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope for our sake, as baseball fans' sake, maybe not for your blood pressure's sake, Coley, but I hope just for the sport of baseball that we do get a really interesting NL East pennant race. But let's just live in a world where the Phillies do win the division. In a world where the Phillies do win the division, where the Phillies, after a 9-19 start and firing Rob Thompson, all of a sudden look like they could be a legitimate contender in the National League. If the Yankees do the thing that they've done the past couple of years, I mean, like the Rays are just 3 games back of the Yankees right now. So if the Rays win the division, if the Yankees do something dumb in the postseason that costs them a series, if you're a Yankee fan, you're looking around like, what do we have to do to get Don Mattingly? They're already so fed up with Aaron Boone. If I was a Yankees fan, I would be fed up with Aaron Boone. I would be like, this guy is far too analytically committed. He lives and dies by the analytics, and that drives me absolutely bananas and bonkers as a baseball fan and a sports fan. If Don Mattingly is able to take the Phillies out of the depths of the baseball world, and if he is able to bring them, let's just say, to winning the division and a legitimate contender, didn't even have to win anything, just to look like a contender, feel like a contender, I would be begging and pleading and on my knees asking whatever it would take to get Don Mattingly's efforts back to the Bronx. Am I crazy?
Oh, I don't think you're crazy. I think there's certainly Yankees fans who would say the same thing. Um, if that were to go down, we got a long time between now and obviously September,
Plenty of time.
potentially October. I think that the Phillies would be more apt to want to hold on to Don Mattingly. Of course, he's under this interim managerial role right now. Has head coach has managerial experience, of course, in other places. Miami, of course, has been an assistant and a bench coach in other places like Toronto for a while. I think it's Phillies. I think Philadelphia would be crazy to let him walk anywhere else. But if he wants to come back to New York, it feels like if there is really going to be an opening, that opening is going to be across the town in Queens and not so much in the Bronx. I mean, it could be in the Bronx if the Yankees completely fall apart, of course. But with what's going on with the Mets and Carlos Mendoza, who, I used to cover the Yankees, so I got to know Carlos Mendoza when he was the bench coach there. Love the guy, one of the real genuine people in baseball. So I hate to see him going through this situation. Want him to be in a much better situation than he's got with the Mets. But Mattingly would certainly make sense if somehow the Phillies let him out of their clutches. I don't foresee that happening. I think the Phillies and Phillies fandom has realized, okay, we got gold right here. Don't let this guy get anywhere else. I think he's probably going to be satisfied staying in Philadelphia. But you mentioned the Bronx connection, of course, him being the all-time Yankee great. It would be a great homecoming, a reunion of sorts. I mean, the Yankees brought Aaron Boone back, so certainly there is that sense of familiarity and reunionship within the Bronx. But I think it'll take a lot of dominoes for that to happen, and one of those dominoes would be the Phillies letting Mattingly get out the door, which right now, the way they're playing and the way they've played since he's taken over. You mentioned 9-19 was where they were before the firing of the previous manager, bring him in. I just don't think that the Phillies let him out the door.
It would, and again, that is a lot of what ifs. That is a lot of if this, then that, carry the one divided by two. And ultimately, it would be a Don Mattingly decision because he's choosing between familiarity in two different ways. Familiarity with the Yankees, familiarity with that fan base, familiarity with that's where he had so much success as a player versus familiarity with the Phillies, current familiarity with that roster, current familiarity with, the experience that he has had there. I just can hear Yankees fans now because we know that Yankees fans would probably feel entitled to Don Mattingly because Yankees fans feel entitled to a lot of things. No shade, but it would ultimately come down to Don Mattingly and where he would want to see out. Probably he's 65 years old. He probably has time, but probably definitely more baseball behind him than he does have in front of him. But you bring up the Mets. The Mets are a fascinating case study to me because we keep talking about the big bad Dodgers, the big bad Yankees, the big bad Braves, the teams that have spent so much money and find themselves at the top of Major League Baseball rankings. But yet what we seldom mention is how what should be the big bad Mets, who have spent more money than any other team not named the Dodgers over the past couple of years, and they still stink. So I know that Philadelphia Phillies fans, and I know that Braves fans don't like each other very much, but maybe, Coley, as a Braves fan yourself, maybe one place where you can find some common ground with the New York Mets, or with the Philadelphia Phillies fans, is kind of enjoying and relishing in Mets fans' misery.
Yeah, I think this is the one place where Atlanta and Philadelphia sports actually do combine their efforts. There is this sense of, I won't even call it hatred, at least not on my end, but there is this sense of rivalry between the Mets and the Braves. It goes back years, but it really goes back into the 90s and late 90s in particular, when both teams were battling for those opportunities to play in the World Series. The Braves were always in the World Series. It felt like, of course, 1993, they didn't get there, and we know why. Phillies fans, yes, the Phillies ended up beating the Braves in the NLCS in 1993. That took away that opportunity for the Braves. But 91, 92, 95, they win the World Series. 96, they're in the World Series. 99, they're in the World Series, and they get in that World Series because Kenny Rogers throws a full count walk to Andrew Jones with the bases loaded to walk in the winning run in the NLCS, and the Braves go to the World Series. Of course, they lose the World Series to the Yankees, but they go to the World Series. It's because they beat the Mets. That's how deep this rivalry is. So yes, Braves fans are reveling in this. Phillies fans are certainly reveling in this Mets despair, this Mets misery at this current time. But like I mentioned a few seconds ago, I got to know Carlos Mendoza several years ago when he was in New York and on the other side of New York when he was with the Yankees. And I really hate to see that he's going through this right now. I hope that the situation that he can get into next will be one that will bring him a lot more success, because that's one of the people in baseball that I do enjoy rooting for. But it is hard as a Braves fan to not take any sense of joy in what is happening with the Mets, because this is what the rest of us have always felt like. Well, that's the Mets, Yankees fans say that, Phillies fans say that, and Braves fans say that, and it is comical because of how much the Mets have spent on building this team. Of course, they've also dealt with a lot of injuries this past year, and that's a big part of it. There's other reasons as to why this experiment just hasn't worked, but you do feel for the people at Citi Field, because it's been so long since there have been any real success for the Mets. But again, I don't know if I'm too sad about it, being in the native Atlanta.
Yeah. And I am a native St. Louisan. I am a born and raised Cardinals fan. I came out of the womb hating the New York Mets. And even I feel bad for the New York Mets, because there is a different kind of anger and sadness of, you were supposed to be good. You have spent so much money to be good. You have put in an entire offseason of strategy to be good, and you still are terrible. The depths of despair, they say. Even I feel bad. A lot of people are feeling bad for Caitlin Clark waking up this morning. A lot of controversy that came out of not just the first, but also the second matchup of the week with the Phoenix Mercury. Does the WNBA need to protect its superstar better? Coming up next.
There was a big bright light shining on the hall, and I saw these two figures, and they were coming. I couldn't see who they were. It was just like dark, shadowy figures. And then we walked past them, and I was just talking to Jeff, and they were talking about before we started signing about how it goes. And then grabbed me from behind, and he's like, hey, he says, you're not even going to say hello to me? You're doing that? And it was Taker. I said, I had no idea it was you, but that's so cool. It's so good to see you, man. I gave him a hug, and I said, man, I got to tell you, I said, I'm super excited for you, man. Are you excited for Dave Meltzer to give you the Booker of the Year award? And he said, shut up,
Myles Garrett traded to the Rams. They're trying to live in two worlds where they've got an eye on the future with the quarterback they took this year, but also clearly, maybe more than any other team we've seen, trying to push here for a Super Bowl, which the burden of expectations is going to be tough on that team this year. Like, it is, sometimes I kind of roll my eyes at the Super Bowl or bust idea, but this really is like, that's it. Like, Super Bowl or bust. Everything else it would be a failure of a season.
Got to get a touchdown on this possession. Stepping up Garrett. Garrett surveying. He wants it all. End zone flavors is there.
No
but it's
way.
pulled away by
No
Cook.
way.
Cook pulled it out of the
No
air
way.
and out of the hands of Flavors for a Northern Arizona touchdown.
Way. That just happened. In my mind, I'm thinking INT, ball game's over. Marlon Cook says, give me this. I need it.
I grew up in Colombia, so soccer was our life. We grew up watching it, during the weekends. We all would go to the stadium, whatever. When I moved to the United States, I kind of lost that, passion for it. But I wait for the World Cup, and then I'm back. You remember what happened in '94?
No, I remember. I didn't know if you were going to bring it up, but I remember.
Yeah, the U.S.
No,
obviously
I'm not going to bring it up. I'm just saying.
No, nobody brought it up. Nobody brought it up.
We're not even talking.
They were so egregious. I mean, a fist in the throat is crazy. It's crazy. It's dangerous. That was Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White after the Fever's 111-109 loss to the Phoenix Mercury. That was their second matchup with Phoenix of the week, Coley. Going back to the first matchup, 5 players were issued technicals. Maisha Hines-Allen got 2 and was ejected from that game. That's how chippy it got. And then in the second matchup, even more so. There you see Alyssa Thomas kind of putting her fist in into Caitlin Clark's throat when she was on the ground. That photo, that screen grab, when you see it in slow motion, I will say it does look worse than maybe it actually did when I was watching that game in live time. But luckily, there is no doubt that Caitlin Clark is a generational talent, that Caitlin Clark is one of the faces of the WNBA. Stephanie White said that was a cheap shot along with another one. She said it was absolutely unacceptable. And then we saw Caitlin Clark leave the game in the third quarter. She did not return. Caitlin Clark's been dealing with a back injury. Stephanie White said that there's no way to say that made it worse, but it is what happened. She did leave the game with a back injury. I will ask you, Coley. Does the WNBA need to do better? Does officiating need to do better? Do they need to protect superstars like Caitlin Clark better than they have been?
Well, I think it's about protecting everybody. I think that's part of the issue here, is that the WNBA is trying to figure out, okay, how do we toe that line of making sure we're fair and judicious to everybody? But yes, also keeping the stars healthy, in line, on the court, because as we've mentioned numerous times on this show, Caitlin Clark is the cash cow, right? She is such a big part of the league that you have to have her out there. You have to have her playing if you want to see the revenue do what it's going to do, if you want to see the TV dollars do what they're going to do. Granted, people are going to watch regardless. I think we have started actually seeing that the numbers are bearing that out, but people are watching that much more when it's Caitlin Clark facing off against the Atlanta Dream. When they are playing those really good teams, when they're playing the Liberty, when they're playing the Aces. But when you have a moment like this could exacerbate an injury. This could cause an injury. It also does bring eyeballs to the situation, and not in a positive way. This was a cheap shot. And to your point, when you see it live, it just looks like, they kind of get tangled up. Alyssa Thomas is just kind of stepping over her just because. But when it is slowed down and it is shown as a replay, it is egregious. It was a cheap shot. Stephanie White was absolutely right in calling it out. I just think the officiating itself has to be better. If we're at a point where 5 players are getting technical fouls in a single game, and mind you, this is a Mercury team that's not very good right now. So this is a Mercury team that doesn't really have anything to play for but maybe cheap shots right now. That goes on the officiating. The officiating has to be able to step in and control the scene better. I think this goes for any game, but specifically now, with the Fever, with Caitlin Clark having this target on her back, she's always going to have a target on her back, but it feels like she's going to get even more of a target because teams are seeing that they can kind of get underneath her skin, that they can kind of get her a little more riled up. So you do have to watch the cheap shots, and you do have to be able to legislate that. You also have to legislate the reactions back to potential cheap shots. And so that's why I say I think this is a league-wide issue that that the officials in the league have to sit down and say, we can't show favoritism, but we also have to know that we have to protect these key elements and protect everybody in order for the league to operate in some type of symbiosis and some type of unison. Because when you have a night where you have 5 players getting technical fouls, a lot of jawing throughout that night, as we saw on Monday, and then you have an incident like this on Wednesday night, it doesn't look good for the league. It doesn't look good for the player like Caitlin Clark herself to be subjected to a shot like that. It's on the league to change this as a whole.
Yeah, Cassandra Negley and I, my co-host on Hoops 360, we were actually talking about this on our podcast yesterday before this game. We were reacting to Monday night's game where the 5 technicals. I'm sure you've seen the photos and videos of Sophie Cunningham pointing at DeWanna Bonner. And we were just kind of laughing about it. And we said, look, nobody was hurt. Nothing was taken too far. Everybody needs to take a chill pill. Everybody wanted to make this large, grandiose, philosophical statement about life and basketball and society based off of that game. Our whole point was it's not that serious. It's funny. These are competitors. And competition, breeds friction like that. And as long as it doesn't cross a line, I think that we all could just kind of enjoy what is kind of a heated back and forth. What we love that as sports fans. We love it when hockey players drop the gloves and get in a fight. We love it when things kind of boil over and we start to see the emotions of these coaches and athletes, as long as it doesn't cross a line. It didn't on Monday night. It did last night. Alyssa Thomas crossed a line. Whether it was intentional or not, she did. It was a cheap shot. It was deserving of a foul. You never want to see the game get so physical that players get hurt because of it. And whether it's because of it or not, it is what happened last night. We saw Caitlin Clark off the floor. The league is better when Caitlin Clark is on the floor. So I think that the officiating needed to be on high alert after the game that we saw on Monday night. Also understanding the history between these two teams. Alyssa Thomas hates the Fever. This goes back several years. She called out their fans. She called them toxic. DeWanna Bonner spent the beginning of last season with the Indiana Fever. It ended very strangely. So the officials should have been on high alert for all of those reasons. How chippy it got in their first game and the history between these teams. And they weren't. And that is a shame on the referees. All of those things can be true, along with the same time as Caitlin Clark can be kind of an instigator. Caitlin Clark leads the WNBA in technical fouls. That Caitlin Clark is not the first player ever to be on the receiving end of a cheap shot. But all of a sudden, it's what happens to Caitlin Clark, and it is on the headlines. It's what we talk about on social media. People who have probably never watched a WNBA game in their lifetime all of a sudden have something to say about it because it happened to Caitlin Clark. So I think that it's a little unfair to be making these massive, conclusions about the WNBA and about the league itself when it happens to one individual player. All of these players need to be protected, along with Caitlin Clark. The WNBA needs to understand that Caitlin Clark draws eyeballs, brings money, puts butts in seats. She's so incredibly valuable to this league. The officiating needs to be better as a whole in its entirety, and last night was a perfect example of that. But it is not the first time that a cheap shot has been given in a professional basketball game.
Yeah, well, by the way, I think the authorities were looking for some of the infractioners. I had all these signals going off over here, so apologies on that. But no, I mean, literally, the league needs to protect all players. To your point, and I think what really needs to happen is the league needs to sit players on every team down at some point very soon. I would argue before games this weekend. Have these meetings organized and say, look, this is what we are allowing and this is what we aren't. We are not going to allow players to issue cheap shots and other instances that go beyond the scope of what basketball is. We don't need to remind you what sportsmanship is, but we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. It goes to having these conversations beforehand if you're the league, stepping in and trying to stop something before it becomes an even greater issue, because clearly it is an issue, and it's an issue that I think, maybe if you're the Washington Mystics and the Toronto Tempo, say you're playing a game, you're like, hey, this has nothing to do with us. Like, why are we targeted? This is only a Fever issue. And you say, well, okay, maybe it is, but it also is something that can affect the rest of the league, whether Caitlin Clark's on the court or not. Let's sit down. Let's nip it in the bud right now. Let's address it behind closed doors, and then you get on the court and you hopefully see much cleaner play. But that's one way the league can be a little more proactive about going about this before it becomes a little bit bigger. And, it is a conversation that the league needs to sit down the officials and say, hey, this is what we're going to tolerate, and this isn't what we're going to tolerate. And when we see an incident like we saw last night between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark, that isn't anything. I think universally that would be accepted as something that you would not want to see in a game. So I just think that the league needs to sit with players, sit with officials on their own individually, and say, hey, let's take a little bit of a chill pill here. Let's reset and let's get going again and still have competitive ball. It's one thing to be competitive. And like you said, too, it's one thing to have the drawing, to have the intensity, and there's another thing to cross the line. And that last night crossed the line, and it feels like there are other incidents. And I guess the Fever would argue this happens to them maybe more than other teams. That's another conversation for another day. But you don't want it to cross the line too much on whether it's a star player, or any team. So that's why I say let's just address it, straight up, firsthand, and then move on as a league. And then maybe in the off season we'll see some enhanced rules and legislation around it to protect everybody.
Consistency of officiating was one of the top priorities for the WNBA going into this season. That's the reason why Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the league, put together this kind of task force to make sure that officiating was standardized, to make sure that they were cracking down on games getting overly physical. So what I think we're seeing right now is just a lack of consistency in officiating, that we have games where, like, for example, the Atlanta Dream and the Washington Mystics just a couple of weeks ago, the Atlanta Dream went to the line 40 to 45 times. That's ridiculous. There is no world where a team needs to go to the line 42 times. There's also no world where in that same league, just a couple of weeks later, we have one player's fist in another player's throat as she's on the ground, and that doesn't get called. All I would ever ask for in this league and any other league, professional or non-professional, just officiate the games consistently. Oh, coming up next, though, because the basketball and hoops conversation continues. We had some breaking news earlier in the show. LaMelo Ball is headed to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for Naz Reid. Ben Fox, our resident Yahoo Sports betting insider, is a die-hard Timberwolves fan, as you can see. So we'll get his thoughts on the trade coming up next. Hey, Ben.
Possibly for one of those RPO type plays where you put it in Tomas's gut, but you see the sticky coverage on the outside, trying not to allow for easy completions.
From the 16, they send the blitz. He lofts it, corner of the end zone. What a catch against the wall. Quentin Randolph.
Problem was, this is good coverage. You just got to continue to run. Right there, you see Page kind of give up on it.
Mike Leach revolutionizes offense in the SEC with the air raid. Bob Stoops gets the Oklahoma job. He calls the guy whose offense drove him the craziest, who makes Mike Leach's offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. That works really well. Texas Tech hires Mike Leach. That changed high school football in the state of Texas. Meanwhile, you had players from Texas Tech going into the NFL saying, hey, here's what we did. He changed football at every level.
1:18 to play, third quarter, pumps once, Delora rolls. Delora calling out for his receivers, back across the field, wide open, McKee, inside the 10, Seneca McKee, angles for the end zone, touchdown, Nighthawks.
But he keeps the play alive and just finds the backside. McKee with the great finish. Phenomenal job right there by Delora.
I think Darius Acuff is by far the best point guard in this draft. I don't think it's a close second. And I think Acuff is different. Acuff can get a bucket. Acuff can pass the ball. And he has this confidence. He has this confidence it's not arrogant. It's not cocky. It's a surety in himself that you need to be successful at this level.
Breaking news, the Charlotte Hornets are trading LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves per Shams Charania. Hornets receive Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps, and 3 second-round picks, while the Timberwolves will receive LaMelo Ball and Josh Green. That is some brand new information, breaking blockbuster trade that came down the pipe this morning. And we mentioned earlier the Timberwolves obviously acquiring the LaMelo Ball. So we decided that we would have to get a Timberwolves fan perspective. So Ben Fox, Yahoo Sports betting insider, is here with us. But also, maybe even more important than the title of senior betting analyst, is diehard Minnesota Timberwolves fan. Ben Fox, your initial reaction when you saw this trade coming down the pipe?
Yeah, morning, guys. Listen, I just had the cup of coffee. I was about halfway through, maybe, and all of a sudden, this came down. My initial reaction was, "Oh man, LaMelo Ball, is that really the fit we necessarily want next to Anthony Edwards?" But I think there's a couple things to kind of keep in mind. The first is Anthony Edwards is not a point guard, right? And that's something the T-Wolves have really lacked the last couple of years. When they made that run back the first time in 2024 to the conference finals, it was kind of because Mike Conley found the fountain of youth and was a really good player and was that point guard. They haven't really had that as kind of Conley has aged, and so Ant has had to be kind of the point guard in a lot of cases. And so I think having a true point guard like LaMelo Ball, obviously they re-signed Ayo Dosunmu as well with some of that money from getting off of Julius Randle. So now you have kind of a true point guard. They're expecting, obviously, he can distribute as well, pass that around, give other people opportunities. I think Isaiah Evans, who they just drafted as a potential DDV, Dante DiVincenzo replacement for at least part of this year. So I understand from kind of some of the fit perspective. I think that ultimately when you have a superstar like Anthony Edwards, I don't really believe they're on the clock, but I think they're certainly going to treat it that way, as if, okay, now Giannis has been moved. Who's the next potential star? Well, I guess the answer was LaMelo Ball. But after LaMelo Ball, right, years down the road, is it Anthony Edwards? And so you have to have these moves to potentially keep him happy as well. I think he loves being in Minnesota. All those things said, I think if you ask Timberwolves fans who their favorite player is, I would imagine most of them are going to say Anthony Edwards. And I would think most of them at number 2 might also say Naz Reid. So that's the piece that's tough to give up, right? You have to give up something great to get something great. Obviously, T-Wolves don't have a lot of first-round picks, so gave up some of those. The second-round picks, whatever, the swaps, that's something that hopefully doesn't matter that much if the Hornets are good as well. It's really the Naz Reid piece and some of the other flexibility, and you're getting rid of Julius Randle as well. So it's a different version of the team. The question is kind of, what is this swing going to be something that gets them over the top? Because the T-Wolves have been right there. The question is there that big a gap between them, San Antonio, and OKC? Or are they really kind of right there, and a couple breaks this way or that way could have led to a different season this year as well?
Speaking of that, Ben, the favorites to win the 2027 finals are the Thunder and Spurs in the West. So the co-favorites at plus 260 on BetMGM. Do you think that Minnesota can be part of that mix? Can they contend with those other two Western Conference powerhouses after this move?
I think after this move, they probably still have a little more to go. But my sense is that Tim Conley, the Julius Randle, right, we knew when that deal happened to the Nets, there was something else happening after that. And I'd be surprised if there isn't something happening after this as well, because obviously now without Naz Reid in the front court and Julius Randle as well, you're a little light there, which obviously you weren't coming into the offseason. So I would expect there's one or who knows more potential moves as well. I don't think that the T-Wolves necessarily are on that tier. I think if they add another small piece, they can be. And ultimately, I think DiVincenzo, how and if he comes back this season, is a big thing. He was just so important for this team, and losing him, you could just kind of see, even though the team rallied around and beat the Nuggets, it was just, he was such an important player that would have helped against the Spurs or potentially against the Thunder. And so they're right there. I think ultimately the difficulty with all these teams, and we talk about it in sports, is like, you don't want to overreact, right? Like we tend to forget and just look at the result. Back in 2024, the Timberwolves were facing the Mavericks, Luka and Kyrie in the Western Conference Finals. The first 3 games were, I believe, within about 2 points with 2 minutes left, and the Timberwolves lost all 3 of them, right? And that's just the T-Wolves didn't have the experience. Luka's been playing international basketball since he was, 14, and Kyrie's won a championship and has played in a ton of big games. They just had the experience, kind of in the same way we saw the Knicks in this postseason, the NBA Finals, had the experience with all their collective players, and the Spurs didn't. the T-Wolves now have some of that experience through the core of the team, but also now some of that core is gone, right? And Julius Randle's not there anymore. Naz Reid not there anymore. So a long way of saying I think that they can get there. And also they're just, these teams are at different points, right? The T-Wolves have had to pay some players. They've had to trade some players. The Spurs, all these guys are on rookie contracts, so they're in a great spot. And the Thunder, even though they have had to pay some of their big stars, they also have all those draft picks, right? And a lot of flexibility too. So it's two tough teams to catch. I think the Thunder and Spurs are rightful favorites in the West and overall to win the championship.
This certainly has not been the only recent blockbuster trade in the NBA. Obviously, Giannis to the Miami Heat, and we saw the Heat's odds go from 30-1 to 18-1 after the Giannis trade. Do you think the sports books got the odds right, or is the shift maybe a little bit of an overreaction after all of the Greek freak excitement?
I think they got it right in their minds, right? Since they're allowed to offer whatever odds they want. I think this is definitely an overreaction, right? In a sense, and it's always important to remember, sports books they have to offer all these odds, but they don't have to offer it at the odds that you would like to bet it at, right? And so they're going to juice this up. This was at least as of a couple of days ago, the biggest trade in the NBA this offseason. And so I think Giannis moving 18-1 for the Heat to win the title, right? We talk about the Timberwolves and building a roster and what's there. The Timberwolves have a much more complete roster than the Heat. The Heat have a lot to kind of figure out because obviously the Bucks kind of asked for the world and pretty much got it from the Heat in order to land Giannis. So you end up with that kind of problem of, okay, now you've got the star player, but what's left on that team that he goes to? As we see the starting lineup there, again, Andrew Wiggins, a player very familiar with from the Timberwolves. Like, they have a good starting lineup, but again, where is the depth? And in the East, you still have, right, the Celtics, assuming that Jaylen Brown is there with Tatum. You have the Pistons, you have the Knicks, the Cavs. Like, there's still a lot of good teams, and obviously teams that have been together for longer as well. So sometimes when these teams are thrown together, it takes a little while for the chemistry to build. I think 18-1, I think they have the fifth best odds of any team. That's definitely too high based on just the team that they have right now. Somewhat those odds, right? It's like the stock market. It's a little of a projection of what they will be. And so if you think they're making other moves and potentially that could be their odds in a bit, I wouldn't say buy them at 18-1, I guess is overall what I would say. But I think, yes, it's a little bit of an overreaction because sportsbooks know they can offer that at 18-1, even if it should be 20, 22, 25-1. And people are going to bet it because it's Giannis and South Beach.
This week, we also had the NBA draft, Ben, and Cameron Boozer opens as the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year this coming season. Explain to us why that's possible for him to be the Rookie of the Year, according to the sports books, that is, despite him being drafted behind the likes of A.J. Debonsa and Darren Peterson.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of a couple things, right? First, they aren't that high odds, right, comparatively. So we've had Victor Wembanyama last year. I think he was about minus 200. I think Kevin Durant was one of the odds-on favorites as well. And they both obviously won the Rookie of the Year. Cooper Flagg as well was an odds-on favorite. So this is still plus 250. And Debonsa and Peterson aren't that far behind as well, with Acuff at plus 450. Ultimately, it's kind of about a couple of things. The first is opportunity, right? And how much kind of is going to be focused around that team. You would assume Ja Morant is moved somewhere at some point by the Grizzlies. And so really then you have kind of the focus, a lot of the focus around Cam Boozer, maybe playing him as that kind of point forward, getting a lot of assists, getting stats, and ultimately getting a lot of playing time, right? I think that's something we saw last year, right, with, let's say, Ace Bailey with the Jazz. Really talented player, but how much playing time are you going to get? And so I think that's a bit as well. Darren Peterson on the Jazz, they have a lot of dudes all of a sudden, right? They have, Markman, they have Triple J. They have a lot of the young core as well. They have Ace Bailey. So how much is he going to play? How many stats, counting stats, is he going to have? And then Debonsa is the same thing with a Wizards team where they have all sorts of pieces, right? They have, all of a sudden Trae Young and Anthony Davis and all these young players. And so I think that's where it's a lot of the opportunity. Acuff is certainly an interesting one in Sacramento. You figure they're going to kind of potentially hand the keys to him. And I think that's why you've seen him at plus 450. And those are really the players right now with single digit odds, everyone else a little further back. But it's really that opportunity as well. That's why we might see a player like Jaxa Lindenberg, 20-1, a really good player, but going into Golden State, where you obviously have a lot of people already established, it's going to be tougher for him to play, have Steve Kerr's trust, and put up stats with Steph Curry and others there.
Ben Fox, you are the absolute best. You can find all of his betting insight on Yahoo Sports. Of course, our senior betting analyst here at Yahoo Sports. So overall, Ben, feeling good? Are we happy about the trade?
I think ask me in like 6 hours. Happy because I think Ant must have signed off on it. And Tim Connolly, I trust him. So yes, feeling good.
We have our producer, Doug, who's a Charlotte Hornets fan, who I think is actively going through the current stages of shock and grief. We have our TD, Tony, who is a Timberwolves fan, who I think is going through the same thing. So at least you have support here, Ben, as a Timberwolves
it's a lot to
fan.
process.
Everybody's kind of going through this. It's a lot to process. We're doing it in real time, but we're doing it together. That is the power of friendship. Ben Fox, appreciate you as always. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Sounds good.
All right, Ben Fox, he is the absolute best. But coming up next, Wyndham Clark, Baker Mayfield. What do they all have in common? We'll explain next.
Do you have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies. This national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in.
Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I'll take it as a miss because it didn't work. But I still think this guy has the potential to become a star in this league. I was super on the train of draft Jonathan Kuminga. And so I'd have to say that that's my miss, but not miss from the standpoint of Killian Hayes type of miss. Miss from the standpoint of ultimately it didn't work. And now he's trying to and will figure it out, I think, in Atlanta.
We'll see how things go. And this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago. And the return up to the races, Aaron Jackson. Touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs, and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm going to say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
Check out Yahoo Sports coverage of the Austrian Grand Prix. This weekend, you can watch F1 practice and qualifying coverage for free on yahoosports.com and the Yahoo Sports app. Free practice 1 begins tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. with practice 2 following at 11 a.m. Practice 3 and race qualifying takes place Saturday, June 27th at 6:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. all Eastern Time. The Austrian Grand Prix itself will stream on Apple TV at 9 a.m. on Sunday, June 28th. For more, go to yahoosports.com/racing. All right, Coley, I am going to introduce you to a little segment that we do here on the show called Scrollin'. So all it means is we're scrolling through our social media, something caught our attention, something made us say, like, what in the world? For whatever reason. Because we know that Twitter and social media is full of things that make us go, What in the world? So let's start with this. Former head coach, thank goodness he's the former head coach of my LSU Tigers, Brian Kelly will call college football games for CBS. So he is dipping into the broadcast booth, this according to our friend Ryan Glasspiegel. Are you a fan of him calling games on CBS? I will start just because I have some feels about this man. Take my LSU fandom away. Brian Kelly is not interesting enough to call games. Like he has a strange little bird. He's got an odd little personality with some very dry humor, and I don't necessarily think that plays for TV or for calling college football games.
Yeah, I do have to preface my answer by saying, of course, in addition to working here with you all, I do work alongside my colleagues at CBS. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Brian Kelly will bring the viewers this fall. But knowing Brian Kelly as a college football coach, because, of course, publicly, that's all any of us have to go on. He does have a sense of dry humor that I'm curious to see how that translates to a live television audience on a national college football game. But he also has this sense of the game itself. You know, I know that his tenure at LSU with him and his family going down to Baton Rouge, I know that was not something that you were a fan of, Caroline, but he also has that track record, having been at Cincinnati and Notre Dame as well. He's got a lot of life experience in the game. So I'm curious to see just what he's able to bring from an experience standpoint to add color to the broadcast, because, of course, that's what his role will be. But yeah, it is one of those things that probably makes a lot of people go, huh, as they're scrolling their phones.
Huh. And look, I have nothing against Brian Kelly, the person. The reason, or the football mind, because he is clearly a brilliant football mind. He won everywhere he went before he was at LSU. He won at Grand Valley State. He won at Cincinnati. He got Notre Dame to a national championship game and to a couple of more college football playoffs. Like, he was a certified winner. The reason why he didn't work at LSU was just because I don't think that, one, he was a great fit for the NIL era, and two, it just wasn't a great fit in the state of Louisiana and at LSU, where things are just different. And if you don't immerse yourself into the middle of the culture and into the middle of the people and everything that the LSU represents for the state of Louisiana, you're not going to be successful. So it's not because he's not a brilliant football mind. So it will be fascinating to hear his contributions there for CBS with Mountain West games. But next one, and this was one that I had to double check to make sure that it wasn't coming like from The Onion. It wasn't coming from like some fake account, because it definitely had the makings of being from a fake account. A story that nobody saw coming. Wyndham Clark, of course, professional golfer, told Pardon My Take that his tweet from 2016 that read, quote, "I hate Baker Mayfield," was because Wyndham's then girlfriend cheated on him with Baker Mayfield. Reaction to that. That's a crossover I never thought that we'd see coming.
Yeah, that was a weird crossover. I don't think I'm still expecting this. I'm still kind of shocked by reading this. But I will say that I'm curious to know. I'm not really curious to know any details, actually. I don't want to know any details about this situation, but I am a little curious to know whether this happened when they were both in college. Wyndham Clark did begin his collegiate career at Oklahoma State. Of course, Baker Mayfield ends up at Oklahoma. I don't know what the timeline of all that is, but if it's a rivalry type thing, that adds a little bit of shade to everything. All I know is Baker's a happily married man, it seems now, with a wife and kids. I think that he's a little surprised that his name is being floated with this from 10 years ago. But hey, it is what it is. This is part of our talking cycle these days. I hope that each of them is having the life that they need to have at this point, and that young woman is also having the life that she has at this point.
I hope that everybody is happy and healthy and having a great time out there. But if you would have told me that Baker Mayfield back in 2016 was Mr. Steal Your Girl, I would have believed you.
You would believe it.
I would have believed that wholeheartedly. That is the most believable thing that I have heard in quite some time. That Baker Mayfield stole your girlfriend, that your girlfriend cheated on you with Baker Mayfield. Based on what I know on Baker Mayfield in 2016 in his time at Oklahoma and early in the NFL, I very much so believe that. Yes. I very much so buy into that. We talked so much about Baker Mayfield's career trajectory and his career renaissance that he's had at Tampa Bay. And a big reason for that is because Baker Mayfield's done a whole lot of maturing. He'll be the first person to tell you that. That Baker Mayfield now at however old he is, 30 years old, is much different than the Baker Mayfield that he was killing it at Oklahoma, #1 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. He is a different person, as all of us are at the age of 29, 30, 31 than we are at the age of 19, 20, and 21. So I'm glad. And Wyndham Clark even said, he was like, look, I love Baker Mayfield now. He seems like a cool guy. Like everybody's moved on from it. So I'm glad that we can all just have a big laugh, that there's no bad blood there, that there's no, just grudges that have been held over time. Now it's just a really funny story.
Now. It wasn't 10 years ago.
I'm sure at the time. Just like, me in 2016, I obsessed over things that I don't even remember now and wouldn't even care of now. I'm sure at the time there was a lot of contention, but everybody is all hopefully happy now. We can laugh, have a good old laugh about it now. One of the other things that caught my eye while I was scrolling, Kirk Cousins shared his love of none other than the Backstreet Boys yesterday when he was with Andrew Siciliano, who was filling in on the Rich Eisen show. He says during an off day, he's going to see the Backstreet Boys perform at the Sphere, which I love that Kirk Cousins is just enjoying and embracing his life in Las Vegas. Surprised at all that Kirk Cousins is a big Backstreet Boys fan?
No, not at all. Kirk is a little bit younger than me, but we're close in age. And I'm not a Backstreet Boys fan. I never got into the boy band thing. I mean, it was part of being in high school and then into college at that time. So, I'm not surprised in the least. I understand it. I get it. Kudos to Kirk. Backstreet, NSYNC, neither one was my thing. Like I said, I was more maybe into the R&B groups at the time, more of a hip hop head at the time. But so I would probably be wanting to see, like if Usher was still performing in Vegas, I would be going to see Usher instead of seeing Backstreet if that was me. But I totally get it. I mean, it's just Kirk Cousins is just he's a man of his times. And he's also a man who's clearly enjoying being in Las Vegas. And we miss him in Atlanta, but best of luck to him with the Raiders.
He's a good one. This is another story that surprised me 0%.
Oh.
I feel like everything I learn about Kirk Cousins just makes sense. Like when we heard that Kirk Cousins got his hair cut at Great Clips, I was like, yep, that makes sense. Yeah, it tracks. That is not shade by any means. It just makes sense. Kirk Cousins is a very humble, kind of low-key, chill, mild-mannered guy. I'd be shocked if Kirk Cousins went to some fancy pants place to get his hair cut. When he was on the Netflix show Quarterback, and he was talking about, hey, I like my Adidas pants. There's a hole in them, but I like these pants. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Kirk Cousins doesn't seem like the guy that would go out and get really fancy pants and sweatpants all the time. He shops at Kohl's. That makes sense. He's just like a white bread, plain Jane kind of guy. So the fact that Kirk Cousins is a big Backstreet Boys fan, that makes sense. The band that I had, Backstreet Boys lip gloss back when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I think I had a poster of the Backstreet Boys in my first big girl bedroom. And that kind of makes sense that Kirk Cousins and my 6-year-old self have, the same kind of taste in boy bands. Again, no shade whatsoever. I had the wonderful privilege of getting to interview Kirk Cousins when I was at the Super Bowl. Nicest guy in the whole entire world. I wish him nothing but the best, but he's consistent and he likes what he likes. And I appreciate that Atlanta or Las Vegas or life in the NFL hasn't changed him one teeny tiny little bit. Kirk Cousins is what he is, and we love him for that. And we love Coley Harvey, who will be back with us on Yahoo Sports Daily tomorrow. I expect plenty more NBA blockbuster trades and drama to come, so have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.